to the ashes of the Imperium.
Hello and welcome to Ashes of the Imperium. My name is Dan, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, returning co-host of Ashes of the Imperium, Steve Foote, to talk all about his brand new game, Last Titans, which is now live for you to follow on Kickstarter from Megabeast Games. So, Steve, thanks very much. It's great to have you back.
Thank you, Dan. Nice to be back.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you back. We were going to talk about the grand narrative 40K event that you went to, but we never got around to it. But yeah, listeners, long-time listeners of the show will no doubt recognise Steve's voice. Steve was one of the founding members of Ashes of the Imperium, and I'd like to say he went his separate ways due to artistic differences and have some drama about it, but sadly not. Sadly not. There's no drama.
No rock and roll.
No rock and roll. We pride ourselves on being a very rock and roll podcast, no doubt. But yeah, Steve. Newer listeners to the show will thinking, who is this Steve? So, Steve, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us why you're here?
Yeah, okay. We started this originally, Dan, because we both massive Warhammer fans, and we both love the worlds of Warhammer, with 40K especially in all of its different forms. It's, for me, the game is. I can play competitively, not very well, but I get the greatest enjoyment out of narrative, telling stories, reliving actions and things on the table. And I think that's where we had a huge overlap, and it's where we enjoy the fact that you're playing games with your mates, having a laugh, and reliving these incredible worlds that are backed up in Warhammer's case, between decades of fantastic stories, incredible creatures and stuff like that. So I know you play D&D as well, Dan. I mean, complicated games, you don't need loads of rules, but you often do for those complicated games. But again, D&D is about sitting down and enjoying living in a different world, being a different character for a while.
So that's your, I suppose, your narrative pedigree, right? You've always been a big narrative gamer, and you have enjoyed, I suppose, investing in make-believe worlds. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, make-believe, and also over recent years, I've been quite enjoying doing a bit of dress up as well, having fun with cosplay. Mainly because it's like another craft, it's another skill about I don't dry brush that uniform. I'm going to dye it in the washing machine or whatever it's going to be. So yeah, absolutely. It's the challenge of saying, how are we going to make this work on the table? What's a fun thing to do? And I think in a way that's where I eventually came round to doing my new project, which is Megabeast Games. And actually, some of the listeners might know its origins many moons ago. I was involved with Realms at War. It's a group of us in and around Cambridge, ran some narrative Age of Sigmar events. And one of the things we wanted to do for one evening on the Saturday night is, rather than everyone dispersing or going to the pub or whatever, we kind of thought, well, everyone's dragged their backsides across the country or across the planet for some people to come to the event. Can we put something on in the evening? And I came up with this simple kind of fast playing game called Monstrous Arena, and that everybody brought a monster to the event, and you basically had a bit of a gladiatorial fight that didn't take long. We played that all evening. It went down very well, and it was good fun. And actually, that's probably the genesis of where I am now with my new game.
And that new game is Megabeast Last Titans, a dinosaur tabletop survival game. So, I mean, I'm already sold. You can end the podcast there. It's a board game about dinosaurs. No, I think that's it. Podcast over. Why would you not want to back that, right?
So Paul Wagner in America, I was sharing it with him, and I said to him, what do you think? He says, well, who doesn't like dinosaurs? And I went, can I quote you on that? He said, yes. So I'm going to update the website with that. Who doesn't like dinosaurs?
There's an endorsement anyone can get behind, right?
Exactly. And ultimately, if you don't like dinosaurs, then you ain't going to like this game either. So, no. So why dinosaurs? I suppose I'm a massive documentary natural history watcher on the telly. I find the current spate of discoveries we have in everything from quantum physics, which I've tried many times to understand, and I just entangles my brain. I cannot work it out. But then it comes down to, what's been going on paleontological world and discoveries we've had. I think for me, it was that kind of actually dinosaurs plus Monstrous Arena rules that could actually be a thing. And so for like the last on and off, like 2 years, but a lot in the last year, it's been about, can I make this a game? What does it look like? What are we doing? Who is it for? And my biggest challenge was, how do I stop it becoming hugely complicated, taking a long time, needing a million pieces? Some of these very complicated games these days, it takes half an hour to set it all up and put the tokens out and split everything up. So I did want something that was, I had plenty of complicated games. Once you've had a few beers with your mates and it's getting a bit later, what can you pull out to play? And that's where we are at the minute.
Awesome. And so I just sort of having a look here on your Instagram, which is Megabeast_Games. I suppose you've got a post titled "What is a Megabeast game?" And there are 3 pillars to that response. The first is fast and fun to play for all the family, foundations in science, and play in the past, help protect the future, which is quite interesting. So I just want to explore those 3 pillars now for a little bit. Do you want to talk about the first one, fast and fun to play for all the family? Is this a kids game that adults will play with their children, or is this like an adults game that's accessible to children? Where are you pitching this? What's your audience?
So if I kind of paint a scene of what you're going to do in the game, you are a dinosaur, so that's a good start. And what you're going to play is an encounter. So if you can imagine a scene from Walking with Dinosaurs or Prehistoric Planet or any of natural history programs, where there's lions fighting for territory. The game you play is that kind of action moment, and it's making the right choices to do that. So for me, that means it's a short period, so we're going to get a result quite quickly. So it's very much about living in the moment, surviving in the moment, rather than some dinosaur games, which are about, traveling to new environments, about evolving to become a creature that can survive it. There's plenty of those and they're really good, but that's not what I'm trying to do here. When it comes to how you play the game and the decisions you make, I've been quite conscious in calling it a tabletop game because there's not squares. You don't move about in squares, or there's not hexes or anything like that. You use a measure, color-coded measure, to move about and check ranges of things. So it is leaking a little bit back to my wargaming heritage. But what it means is that if you are 6 and you want to go rah, fight, you can absolutely do that. Absolutely.
What if you're 37? Can you do that as well? Asking for a friend.
Absolutely. Your friend will enjoy the game too.
Excellent.
What also happens is, because the encounters might be something like migration or fight for scavenging the dead carcass of a sauropod, if you choose to go raw and hope to fight and win, okay, that could work. But actually with migration, can you throw a bit of a dummy for the T-Rex so it goes the wrong way, uses up its fast cards that you can nip around it to migrate past it? Can you win that way? Yes, you can. So that's where I see, hopefully, the idea that whatever level you want to play, there will be an outcome and it will be reasonably quick. If you want to play it and go, if only I'd done that and then that might have got me there quicker. Let's play again. Then for me, that's a win, and that the game itself has offered you choices that you can learn from. And I think the other thing I would say, and this reflects the world of Warhammer in some ways, is everything going to be perfectly balanced? No, that is not the case. There aren't points. You don't build an army of dinosaurs. And there will be some scenarios, some encounters, as we're calling them, that I will badge very clearly as difficult or impossible, because that happened in nature. And you might be able to survive, you might be not. It's about exploring what you can do with your creatures. And so the first game is making sure we tick the boxes that, what does everyone love? I mean, we've got T-Rex, Triceratops. It's late Cretaceous period. Everybody knows what they are. Everyone has a favorite one of those. So that's going to be hopefully attractive for people when we go to Kickstarter. The aim is to be able to get more sets out, more time periods. So, for example, things like the second set, we hope to be ancient seas. So that's where you get to be pliosaur, plesiosaur, ichthyosaurs, maybe even let's have, megalodon in there. So I think for me, they are megabeasts for sure. They're not dinosaurs. So they're marine reptiles. So I think for me, that's where we've got megabeasts from, is that allows us, and let's hope we do really well. And then eventually we'll end up with Ice Age. And one of the things about it being fast and easy to play is everything works off a hand of 5 cards, unique cards. So, and they all use the same measure and they all have different levels of complexity, whether you want to add environmental stuff. So if you said to me, who would win out of, which is a classic, right? So who would win out of T-Rex and a woolly mammoth? Am I going to sell that as a set? No, because that didn't exist. But if you've bought both sets and you want to try it, the rules are absolutely allow it. So yes, I'm hoping for and expecting for some science experiments of crazy nonsense.
Some narrative play that adheres to the timeline, and perhaps some open play to call it some 40k language.
Absolutely nailed it, Dan. Thank you very much. That's exactly it.
And one of the things there you've said repeatedly, faster play, and with some replayability elements, and also some quick, I suppose, like feedback loops there. That's not telling me that it's a kind of 3 hour long, 2,000 point 40k kind of game. This sounds like something that could be done within half an hour. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if some of the simpler ones you could play in 10 minutes, so that'd be like one creature versus one creature. We have had a couple of people ask, and I absolutely designed that into the game. Honest, Governor. They said, can we play it so that it's actually, can I throw somebody else under the bus? And one of the scenarios where you've got...
I love how wargamers all think the same. They're like...
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Or board gamers, exactly. They're like, okay, I see you've designed this scenario. How can I stitch someone up?
Yes, exactly. So there is one where it's 2 Triceratops versus 2 T-Rexes, and obviously it's 4 players, so you get to play one each. And literally the survival outcome, the winner, is the T-Rex just needs to kill both of them, but if one of the Triceratops can survive, then that's fine. And it's that classic zombie analogy, isn't it? As a Triceratops player, I don't need to outrun the T-Rexes. I just need to outrun the other Triceratops. So again,
yeah. I thought you were going to drop a Walking Dead spoiler there, which I know it's been a long time since that season, that specific moment, but I'm glad you didn't mention any characters.
So I think for me, yes, and you, of course, speaking to more experienced gamers, and they're saying, well, what if I had heard of this, and what if I had that? I'd like to think it will scale. There's a bit more management to it. I'm not delivering the first versions of these games in that way, but I'd always try and keep it in mind. What would that work? How would this work? So, for example, one of the first expansions we're hoping to do will be raptors. And for me, that's exciting because I like the raptors. Obviously, it won't be velociraptors because the ones in the movies are not the actual size of the real ones. Real velociraptors are about the size of a big dog, so not very mega. But Utah Raptor is very much the size of the Jurassic Park ones. But why have those? Well, they'll then have a slightly different play style in that you won't have a big creature going around, but you'll have a little pack of them, and they'll be fast and they'll snap away at you. If T-Rex can get some teeth into one of them, then that's it. They're going to be take that piece off, but it's going to be catching them. They're going to be fast, and so again, for me, that's a play style difference. So then that becomes interesting and exciting to explore.
That does sound cool. And I think we'll touch a little bit on raptors in a minute, because I do have a question on that, but I think that probably sits nicely in the foundations in science section of the chat. But let's talk about, I suppose, structure of this game. You mentioned there T-Rexes and Triceratops. So is that the core set? Is the core set a pair of T-Rexes and a pair of Triceratops.
Yes, so that's the core set, and you'll get a board, which hopefully stretch goals will make it double-sided. What it means is that kind of gives you plenty of opportunities to play, and you would pick whichever side you want, and then there will be a whole bunch of what we're calling encounters, and that would be, like, for example, which is migration or lost from your herd or protect your eggs. Or one of the encounters, again, is, sometimes it's not against each other. One of the encounters is the herd, whatever it is. So you can be a pair of T-Rex, a pair of Triceratops. You're thirsty, you need to go to the river. There's a river on the board. But actually hiding in the river is a Dinosaur, which is a 10-meter long prehistoric crocodile who's going to come out and have a go. So again, you're going to be fighting the environment and other creatures around you rather than just at each other all the time. So survival will be more than just standing toe to toe and whacking each other. So I think for me, the setup, so with the encounters, they're set up as being creature neutral most of the time. So what that means is if you pull out an encounter, it will say herbivore versus meat eater, or meat eater versus meat eater, or herbivore, or anything versus anything. So that means that when you come to play maybe a future set, you can get out your original set, which although would be set for late Cretaceous, and the later set is Ice Age. If an encounter says meat eater versus plant eater, well, you can definitely have Smilodon versus woolly rhino, for example. So they would be color coded to do that. So what I'm hoping is that, first of all, means, I've got 2 or 3 box sets, but I haven't got 2 or 3 individual games. I've actually got 2 or 3 collections of encounters. And the real exciting thing for me is that as we discover new science papers gets delivered, we find more creatures. I'm definitely going to have a sign up where on the website you can download, say, a unique or new encounter that you can then play out with the game. So, we'll be giving away free new encounters, or we know them as missions or battle plans in the same way. They do the same role. That then means hopefully lots of replayability, and lots of chance of introducing it to new people. It's that classic thing, got some friends over, fancy a board game, everyone goes, oh no, not Monopoly. But you can say, we played this for 10, 15 minutes, and then before you know it, you've had 2 or 3 games and hopefully had a laugh.
Awesome. And you've mentioned there a couple of times about velociraptors in the future, or maybe, woolly rhinos and different games. Can you just talk a little bit how much of that is going to be a stretch goal that might be delivered? Because this is being done by Kickstarter, I think we mentioned. And so, how much of maybe Utah Raptors is going to be a stretch goal for this set, and how much, let's say the woolly mammoth versus whatever, a pack of saber-toothed tigers is going to be something that's like a different game or a different season, as it were.
So I think for me, the important thing is I need to get this first game funded, start getting it out there, building a community around it. So that means just keeping my scope manageable. Until that ends, that means that I will keep Last Titans in that era. So it will be the late Cretaceous. So you won't be getting things like Stegosaurus or Megalosaurus or Allosaurus. They are earlier creatures. And in the same way, obviously, Ice Age is much later. But the good news is Utah Raptor is very much Cretaceous. And in some ways, it's being kind of like, I'm being very, very accurate about that. Well, actually, these periods are 50, 60 million years. It's not as if they actually were particularly around the same time. Some early Cretaceous creatures are absolutely gone by late Cretaceous. So, but I don't want it to be so scientifically restricting that people just go, why can't I play this with this? So I think, Utah Raptors at the moment will be a stretch goal. We want to kind of get that in the bag, and we're pretty sure what we know the next one would be. We'll probably have Iguanodon. A couple of reasons. It's a very much a different herbivore than Triceratops. It's also it's 200 years this year that it was not discovered, but actually kind of formally named and described as a dinosaur. So that's quite good story. but also we can have a different play style with it. So yeah, and at the moment we don't know, because if it does really, really well, then I can afford to go back to Andy Fraser, the artist, the paleo artist we're using, and say, hey Andy, make me more dinosaurs. And then there's the balancing acts with production and the more punch boards we have. So when you buy a board game, you get that big piece of card with all the perforated tokens and bits and pieces in it. You know, there are restrictions about how much I can fit on one of those, the implications of adding another one. But that all has to be balanced out with, you know, how much we fund. So I think I've got some initial ideas about what's going to happen and then if it goes crazy, then hopefully we can go crazy. And all of the periods, all of the areas of gaming that we're looking to do, there is plenty of scope with some crazy creatures. So yeah, no, it's exciting.
That's interesting. You mentioned a couple of things there about, you know, the science and the period, but I think it's an iguanodon as well. Wasn't that the one where he's got a big spike on his thumbs, right? And I think originally they put the spike on his nose.
Absolutely, yes.
And I just think that was always one of my little, you know, as I'm sure lots of people were quite into dinosaurs as a child, and in brackets, kind of still am. So that was always one of my little trivia snippets. And then, you know, mentioned there about periods. I think they say like T-Rex is closer in time to humans than the T-Rex is to Stegosaurus in terms of like the timeline.
One of my favorite facts. Absolutely. I think absolutely. I think people, that always floors people, because they're like, say what, you know, and I think it's just shows how long they, you know, were the dominant species on the planet.
On historical accuracy, one of your kind of pillars, as it were, is foundations in science. And you've mentioned there you don't want to go mixing your Cretaceous periods and your Jurassic periods. Notably, of course, Jurassic Park features many, many dinosaurs not from the Jurassic period. You've mentioned there Utahraptors instead of Velociraptors. How kind of accurate are you going in terms of making sure it's still a fun game to play, whilst I suppose keeping it true to the biology or the paleontology?
That's a great question. I think having Andy Fraser on board, who's very good with the understanding the anatomy, understanding what we know, understanding what we don't know. You know, there's lots of things we don't know about the dinosaurs. But for me, he will always be my anchor, as in, no, it couldn't do that pose. We know that for sure because of the ligatures here, and here. So that, you know, that's really important. I think the other thing we're very lucky to have on board Claire Marr, who's an Oxford University PhD student. She's studying apex predators, but she has done work around paleontology. But for me, she's on board to make sure that the things we're looking to do in the game have some reference to scientific understanding as we know it now. And as we know it now is really, really important, because things change. The discoveries are made, new scientific processes are able to be applied to it. And you know, we will always learn more and things will change. And that's good. That's science. That's science at its best. And I think we can still explore some edges. And what I mean by that is, you know, we know that dinosaurs almost certainly had some form of color in them. They definitely had feathers. Many had feathers, and you know, those feathers appear to have no like any issues. They're not there for flight. So are they there for keeping them warm? Are they there for display? Are they there for camouflage? We don't know, but we can explore those. And I think if you look at Andy's work, he definitely explores the concepts of coloration. I mean, just simple things like and I think this is one of the things that we definitely know about the advances in a lot of paleontology, is where somebody will look at a situation that's found either in a trace fossil or a actual fossil bones, that they'll go, actually, there is something here. There's this T-Rex has got these bite marks on it that are by another T-Rex. You know, what could that be about? Well, if you then look at two, you know, apex predators like two lions fighting to territory and they might bite each other, we go, well, then maybe we kind of apply that backwards, and then we say, well, you can probably infer that these guys were fighting, because it's definitely tooth marks. Maybe they were fighting over territory. And I think for me, this is where the game I want the game to live. I want the game to have its foundations in science, and the things we're doing are based on science. And yet there's a bit of speculation in there. So one of the classics is last year there was a paper dropped where somebody had done, so me catching up over the last couple of years with the scientific thinking is T-Rex's maximum speed, which is a hot topic, goes up and down all sorts. The latest thinking it's maybe not as quick, certainly couldn't chase down a Jeep. So then somebody else did a piece of work.
Well, of course it couldn't. It could get close, but we've all seen the accurate documentary Jurassic Park. We know it can't actually chase down a Jeep.
Exactly.
Get 90% of the way there, but not quite.
As long as you get into fourth gear, you're safe, right? So there's been a piece of work that they said, right, we actually believe T-Rex definitely had longer legs than most of its prey. So what if it chased its prey into water where the prey ran out of being able to touch the bottom before T-Rex, and then the T-Rex could pick it off quite quickly? Now, obviously, that paper's out for peer review, and it's one of those things where you kind of go, well, I don't think we'll ever know, but that's a possible thing. So for me, that immediately becomes, okay, how do I turn that to encounter in the game? And for me, it's like, well, we'll have a beach board. We'll have some prey bobbing about in the surf. T-Rex can come charging in to get it. And then suddenly, coming from the sea, a big mosasaur, and they can fight it out in the surf who gets the hot lunch or not. So that sounds like a fun thing to do, and probably something very Jurassic Parky, although we've seen Walking with Dinosaurs and Previous Planet kind of play that out.
And Mosasaur, just for the reference, is the big one that sits in the sea life pond on Jurassic World, right?
You're a secret nerd, Dan.
So there's that, right? I just, for the benefit of the listeners who don't know their mosasaurs from their pliosaurs.
Yeah, no, exactly, mate. It's exactly that. So, that's where I see my job as being that kind of translator of something that perhaps could be a bit techie into something that's really fun to play. And like I said, if it ends up being that T-Rex is going to really struggle to fight off a mosasaur, well, maybe it's more about being quick, grabbing that prey, getting it out into the shallower water where the mosasaur's not keen to go. So again, all of these kind of mechanics can live in the encounters, so you don't have to then have data sheet changes. Let's call it that, because literally to play the game,
six month balance data sheets.
Don't you give me twitches. So literally the 5 cards and the playing piece, once you've got those, you won't need to go back to the rule book. The rule book is 4 pages and just tells you how to move about, how to roll, when you roll the dice and where you place the dice. That's it. Once you've got that and your 5 cards, you're good to go. The flavor, the action, the what are we doing with it now, that all comes in the encounters, which again should be one side of A4. And on that one side of A4 will be not only how to set up, who's going to survive, also, thanks to Claire, we've got a little couple of paragraphs that talk about why we believe this happened, plus some learning outcomes, which at the moment I'm just getting some feedback on, but I think they fulfill that key stage 3. And then also another layer is like some links to some papers. So if you really want to dive in a bit more, it will be there as well, and you can go and read some more. So I think for me, it's like, we're really excited about being nerdy in dinosaurs. You don't have to be. You can just go, right, what's the victory conditions here? Who wins? Okay, that's fine. Let's play. Or you can go, well, why did they do that? Or why do we think we did that? And how do I find out more? And then that should be there for you as well in the game.
That sounds like it's got a lot of depth to it if you wanted to use it, I suppose, as a teaching tool. So if you are, parents of children, I think you pitched it at what, 7 up?
It's 6 up.
6 up, gotcha. Yeah. So, if you've got parents of young children and you want to use it as like a science teaching tool almost, of like, oh, this is what, natural history, let's say they're into dinosaurs, and I suppose like what young kids aren't into dinosaurs. You can not only play a game that doesn't involve any screens, but it's also, you've got an educational aspect to it, or you could just, play it with your mates and shout rah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even some basic things, it's got some dice in it, because we all love some dice.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. You've mentioned there about, counters and dice and encounters. Could you just give like a brief summary of of what that looks like? Are you getting a 3D model? And I suppose this kind of comes into your third pillar, which is play in the past, help protect the future. How did you? What does the product look like? Am I getting an actual miniature of a dinosaur? And
So,
how did you build the sustainability into that?
Great questions. Would I like there to be, miniatures in there? Me personally, yes. And I think some people will go and find some miniatures and sort of plastic dinosaurs and play the game, and it will work with those. The challenges of making plastic miniatures is I don't have the scale of Games Workshop. It also then becomes difficult about what ages can have them. It also then makes my starting size need to be much bigger if I'm paying for molds and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of came around to the idea, it's like, well, there are lots of games out there that have miniatures in them, and they definitely kind of position themselves a bit more grown up. I could have gone for wooden meeples, but again, that still adds cost. And I think for me, I wanted this to be a affordable and easy to expand. So in the same way, for me to be able to have a stretch goal of a Utah Raptor is much less than if I want to include a Utah Raptor sculpt that's then turned into a model. So then people are getting a lot less at Kickstarter because they're having to reach a much higher level, next funding level, to be able to reach it. And I think that also sort of cycled back into my thinking about, where's this going to sell? And I've been very lucky in that my local museum, which is the Oxford University Natural History Museum, which has a fantastic collection, they have been a supporting partner since the beginning. I've been really fantastic with lots of opportunities for me to share with like Youth Forum. I was there at their Megalate event. Speaking to their retail shop there, they are definitely looking to get rid of as much plastic from museum shops as possible. So for me, that came kind of full loop round to, well, this game isn't just for miniature gamers. This is very much a family game. So I've gone for, they are cardboard cutouts with a little standy bit to make them stand up. The big bonus, of course, is I get to get Andy's fantastic art as the creatures. So they are very pretty looking cardboard pieces. So I think for me, the goal is, yes, it's not a miniatures game, but hopefully because it's fast play, we can afford to then have more creatures, which gives you more options, which is more ways to play. So yeah, it's something
you've mentioned Andy there, Andy Fraser there a couple of times. We should probably shout out he's at Dragons of Wales, and he's a Welsh artist and an illustrator who has got an amazing pedigree of drawing both fantasy creatures, dragons, as his name suggests, but also he's done a couple of sort of Kickstarted or I think it's Indiegogos rather, of paleontological art, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he's just done a couple of really big museum pieces. He does private commissions. So yeah, he was interestingly, he's someone I've been following and buying his books for more than 2 years. So he was like, these are fantastic. I love these anyway. So when it came to start the project, I thought, well, I'll have a look and see what I can do. And I think I have got a couple of illustration styles that I've developed over the years for work with my design clients. And I think it's always hard to critique your own work. But what I did look at them and I went, my style is a bit kind of lowbrow, bit crude style, which I like. But if you looked at it and said, can you tell the difference between a Megalosaurus and an Allosaurus? No, not with my style. And then it comes back to, if I want foundations in science and I want them to have a scientific feel to them, does my crude and lumpy style fit? No, it doesn't. Whereas I said, well, look, there's this guy I've been collecting over here, Andy's stuff. His stuff it is fantastical looking, but they do look like real creatures, And in fact, the things like his T-Rexes have got like these big kind of turkey jowly bits underneath. And that's absolutely something we cannot say whether it did or it didn't, because that sort of organic, soft material only very rarely gets captured in the fossil record. So I think for me, it was like, yeah, Andy's my man, and he's been really good to work with. so it's bring it right from the beginning. We talk about bringing it to life, and what I would say to him is, I was like, he did some poses for T-Rex, and I went, yes, no, they're great. I said, and the games you're playing, the action cards you do, like charge or pierce, or how can we do that? And he kind of went, oh right, okay, and then change the poses, and so they are much more kind of capturing the action more than anything else. So yeah, I've been really enjoying working with him.
And I suppose the advantage of not only, and I suppose one of the advantages of going for this heavily sustainable focus, and using like cardboard figures or cardboard kind of cutouts to represent. I suppose it's similar to like the second edition Orc Dreadnought, right? It's a little stand with a bit of art on it.
Yeah,
But not only is there the advantage of being able to include Andy's art on them, but you also then, if you are an owner of a 3D printer, you could print your own dinosaurs in whatever style you want. So if you wanted to have a Jurassic Park style Velociraptor, you could use that, or you could have a very modern interpretation with the feathers. You can go that route. Equally, if you're playing with with kids and they've got their favorite dinosaur model, you could just use the rules. I suppose now we're getting into like proxies and stuff like that. Does your T-Rex rules need to be painted in the correct chapter colors to use the rules of the T-Rex? Like if your son or daughter has a favorite lion, whatever, and you want to say, right, the lions are the T-Rexes and the elephants are the Triceratops or whatever, then you could do that. You could use it as a way to get them excited by using things that they already have.
100%. I think, how do the pieces interact in the game? It's always about the footprint. So the footprint of the playing piece on the board is what you measure to and from. So if your footprint, that means you will always move the same amount, you always reach the same amount. So I think absolutely, I would want people to play with what they want to do. I mean, I think perhaps there is an opportunity for me to maybe partner up with someone on my mini factory that has not an official range, but at least ones we might recommend as being quite good. So maybe that's a conversation to have with somebody. But yeah, of course, you would have to use official cardboard cutouts when you go to Megabeast World Games.
I was going to say, in a match play environment, you are going to have to adhere to the correct shoulder pads on the correct, things.
You can't cut out for advantage, Dan.
I love it. This
T-Rex is sleeping, so it's low down.
So, in summary, it's a fast-paced game for all the family, aged from 6 upwards, and it's about dinosaurs. You can be a dinosaur. Why wouldn't you like that? But it's also simple to learn, and it has a lot of replayability, and also lots of what I like. Interactions with the environment. There, you're not going to be able to necessarily play as all the things, but you are going to be able to interact with creatures of the ancient past.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're going to have some classics, forest fires. We're gonna have a meteor. You got to have the, especially because we are Last Titan, so try and outrun the blast. But yeah, I think again, you can decide to layer on as much as you want. Yeah, morning mist might be an option. So I think if you smash the simple game really easily and go, oh, I want a bit more, hopefully there's there for you to add it on. So yeah, I'm excited. It's been a bit of a journey to get here. I think, interestingly, just on a kind of personal note, my day job as a designer, where I'm usually making some comms or some packaging for somebody else, it's been quite enlightening to make something for me, if that makes sense. It's not a client, it's for me, and trying to keep reminding myself of the brief all the time and making sure that I stay on brief, but then to take what I've created for me out for feedback has been a good learning curve.
An interesting journey, I think, would be an appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. Right? exactly.
Cool. So if this all sounds like something someone wants to get involved with, whether it's to have a look at, or chuck a couple of quid to just support the project overall, or perhaps back the whole project as a full backer, how does that all work? I think we've discussed their Kickstarter a few times. The page is live now. So people can go on Kickstarter, they can search Megabeast Last Titans, and they can follow the page. But when's the project actually going live properly for backing?
So the campaign starts 31st of March. and we'll go on for a month. During that time, hopefully, we'll hit our stretch goals and we will be add more stuff. There's going to be, I've got some signed books from paleontologists, so there'll be all sorts of prizes and stuff that we can do, and hopefully make that time an exciting time and a good time for people to follow us and see what we're doing. I would say the game is approximately 93.7% locked down. Some of these last polishes and tweaks we're going to do during the Kickstarter. So, for example, if we reach, say, a third stretch goal creature that we can fit, I'm going to speak to everybody and say, "What do you want? Let's have a poll. Let's find out what the community would like to see as the third creature."
So you've got 2 stretch goal creatures in mind already planned, but
yes,
if we have a catastrophic success, you might be thinking, cool, what can we do next?
Yeah, and and maybe there's another board, or there's there's lots of options within it. But I mean, some people were kind of saying, "Well, could you put 2 boards together?" And it's like, yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it? So again, that's the beauty of Kickstarter and the scope that which we can go to. And I think the most important thing is that obviously, anyone who's not that familiar with Kickstarter is if you back it as one of the founders, as part of the initial one, you'll pay your money for the core product, but you will get all these extra stuff for free as part of your pledge.
I think one of the things it's probably worth mentioning, I hope you don't mind me asking, is about risk. Kickstarter is often seen as a bit of a risky thing, especially for like larger scale projects. Now, from what you said, you're trying to keep things as achievable as possible, and you said that the game is 90 something percent finished anyway. What would you say the biggest risk to delivering on time would be?
So what can I control and what can I make sure is its best chances? So design and artwork has been my job for very many years, so that's absolutely, I'm very comfortable I can deliver all that. The factory that I've picked is in Germany. They produce 200,000 games and puzzles a week. They have a specialist team of 2 people that only look after Kickstarter projects, so I'm very comfortable that they can deliver it. I am working closely with my accountant about making sure I manage all the VAT shenanigans that Brexit has caused with us. I think also by going to Germany, I've cut out any challenges that the Far East and transportation could bring. And also global economics, tariffs, any of that sort of stuff is outside my control. So that is always going to be a risk. But I think when we're talking about, it's not going to be a $100, $300, $400 Kickstarter. Those sort of things can generally get under the radar for those bigger projects. So I wouldn't have committed the time and money that I have so far if I didn't think it's something we could deliver. And absolutely, it's the first of many. So again, I'm not just having a go. I'm setting the foundations for what will be hopefully a new business for me. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Amazing. And then in terms of kickstarting levels or pledge levels, one of the consistent themes has been simplicity. You want to get this product out the door in good shape. I assume you're not going to have like a million different various versions to back. How does the pledging work?
So absolutely, I think especially if I am going to attract families, if you compare that to say some of the more specialist board games where you get like the deluxe edition and you get the platinum edition and you get the leather case storage edition, absolutely works perfectly for the board game specialists. So for me, I don't want to confuse anybody with that stuff. I also adds extra risks and challenges. If I put that in place and only 2 people want the leather edition and my minimum order is 50, I'm scoobied in that I've got a load of editions that I can't sell. So my plan is to have 2 versions, 2 pledge levels. One is the core game and all the stretches that we can reach. The second one is a nod towards Andy, the artist, and that there will be an artist edition, which will be signed by him, So I'll get a trip in the car to Wales, which would be good. But it will also include a original pencil sketch that was used in the creation of this game. So you get a piece of original art as well at the same time. That won't be hugely more expensive. It's as much as anything to give a nod to Andy and to share some of the art, because I've got some, and I need those for the Megabeast Museum in the future. That feels like the right level to do it at.
So if that sounds awesome, then head over to Kickstarter and search Megabeast Last Titans and follow the Kickstarter. Or if you're listening to this after 31st of March, then head over there and look at the project and back it. But I suppose final question from me, Steve, is if someone's curious about this and they're a board gamer or a war gamer even, what board game would you compare it to? If someone's like, I don't like Wingspan, but I love Carcassonne, what kind of popular board game would you say it has links to or a vibe of?
Yeah, okay. I think some people have kind of said X-Wing in some ways. And
oh wow, the Star Wars miniatures game.
Yeah. So in some ways that you secretly decide your action that you then have to resolve on the table, that involves ranges and some dice rolling. It isn't the same in that way, but what it does mean is that there's different decisions to make at certain times of the game, which means you hopefully you stay in the action all the time. So I think that's why I call it a tabletop game rather than a board game as such. So it is that free movement, free ranging kind of idea. And I've had a number of people say to me, well, what about a grid? What about hexes? And I think for me, they would reduce some of the challenges of, minutiae of measuring. But I think that minutiae of measuring would come from only a small of my audience that are the match play gamers, if you like, that they might want to get a laser out to see if T-Rex can reach the tail of the Stegodon. But I think ultimately, it has that kind of feel to it, that it is a survival. You could say it's a skirmish game, but not all of it is about destroying the other side. So I think that's why I kept it to survival rather than skirmish.
Okay. And something just made me think about another final question, actually. Probably because you said Stegodon instead of Stegosaurus.
I did, yeah.
I love it. You still got your Warhammer Fantasy or Age of Sigmar hat partially on. But I suppose, on that, this is obviously a Warhammer podcast. What about the game is exciting for Warhammer players? Why would a Warhammer player, regardless of system, why would a Warhammer player want to play this?
I think for me, the reason I would want to play it is you've had a full day playing a big game or a couple of games with your mates and you're not ready for bed. You've had a few beers. What can you pull out of the board game cupboard that is fun, quick, but actually there is still some need to think about it and the chance of throwing your other mate under the bus. So, and I think the other flip side is that if you're a war gamer with a young family, that 40k is off the radar for a few years for complexity or whatever, then this is a great introduction into tabletop gaming, and that involves dice. It involves looking at numbers and deciding which number is important, which one isn't. It involves moving a piece around a board, and it involves deciding tactical options to win. So I think for me, it works on both those levels as a way of instilling gaming principles into a younger audience. And also, they'll probably end up telling us more about the dinosaurs than we can probably tell them about Terminators or Gene Stealer Cult.
Awesome. So guys, if you like the sound of that, head over to Kickstarter, search Megabeast Last Titans, and I'm definitely going to be backing it. I'll have to see what this artist's edition looks like. Obviously, always like myself a special edition. Well, Steve, thank you very much for joining us, and it's been a pleasure to have you back, and hopefully have you back soon, whether it's to talk about a Warhammer project or your next Kickstarter project for Megabeast Games. If you're one of our usual listeners, then we'll be back soon with more of our normal Warhammer content. And if you're coming to this from the Megabeast Kickstarter, then drop us a follow on Spotify. We've got Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. Search for Ashes of the Imperium, and we do Warhammer, mostly focused on 40k, but dabbling in Heresy and Kill Team as well. Drop us a follow, and hopefully we'll have you along for the journey as well. Cheers, Steve. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dan.